Hello, my name is Mark Taylor, and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast, the place for creative and inspiring learning from around the world. Listen to teachers, parents, and mentors share how they are supporting children to live their best, authentic life and are proving to be a guiding light to us all. Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. This is a live show. It's great to be able to bring these live podcasts. Gives everybody a chance to comment and to ask some questions, and we can go back and forth. So it's not like my normal podcast where it's just me chatting. If you are here live, please do put a question in if you want to. If you want to ask a question, just put a Q colon at the beginning, and I'll know what that is. If you've got a comment, I can just bring those up too. So that would be absolutely fantastic. If you are hearing me and seeing me, please do put a thumbs up. It's always great to make sure that it's coming through loud and clear. And apologies just for the slightly later start. As with everything which is live, there are tech issues which can happen in any situation. But we're here and ready to go. And I'm really looking forward to chatting to Rachel as she comes through. So, but first of all, what is it that we're actually going to be talking about? Well, we're talking about BookTastic, which is a children's book festival. And this can be streamed into schools. So it's not only is it a great idea, but it's also something which so many people can benefit from, whether they live locally or further afield. And you can see there are a whole number of amazing, or this is just a selection of an amazing number of authors that are going to be involved and are going to be taking part. So let me bring on Rachel, and she's going to tell us much more about exactly what it's all about and her involvement in it and how long it's been going and every question that you're going to want to know as well. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. This is my first live podcast.
It's very exciting. I'm so excited that we could be here and have the chance to do it. So tell us first of all, I guess, what is BookTastic and sort of a little bit of history into how it got going and sort of your involvement in it.
Yeah, lovely. So, BookTastic has been going for nearly 10 years now. We started on a bit of a whim. I moved to Bedford and I am a big bookie person and I wanted something for my children and there wasn't anything. So, myself and a few locals decided we were going to start a little book group with making it a little bit more engaging, something for kids who perhaps were more reluctant readers. So we combined reading a book with doing some craft activities, something artistic. And it kind of spiraled, really. It became very, very popular. And some of the parents locally were saying, why do we do a book festival? And I thought, well, I have no idea how to run a book festival. And I have no links to the publishing industry. I'm just a very enthusiastic reader and figured, well, why not? Let's give it a go. And it just spiraled from there. The first year, with zero budget and zero advertising, we had 600 people turn up.
Wow.
And then it's grown gradually. It's changed over the years. I live in a very nice area, and we have lots of very nice families with groaning bookshelves whose kids love reading. And we were delighted to welcome them to the festival every year, but we realised that we weren't seeing the children who really needed a book festival. So we started talking to local schools and trying to find out how we could reach the families who really needed a festival, but perhaps who didn't think festivals were for them. And that's really where BookTastic has developed in the last few years. So now we work almost entirely with schools. We do have a family weekend, but we aim to get into schools as a way of getting hold of every child, no matter what their background, no matter what their family situation, and we can get them engaged with dynamic, exciting, author-led events that will really get them just inspired to maybe pick up a book and learn all the wonderful things that are inside the pages.
And take us into the realism, as it were, whatever the word would be, in terms of this has been streamed into school. So is it a live event that's been streamed from a live event? Is it just an online event? How does that work?
So this all started really because of, as a lot of these things, COVID. And so it'd always been a live in-person event. And then 2020 hit and we had to cancel within a month because we couldn't hold a live event. And then I went, surely we can. I mean, kids want something, and this wonderful thing called Zoom that nobody had heard of until this point. And we thought, let's just give it a go. So 2020 was the first year we did it online, and it went really well. And then 21 was online again, and we kind of expanded. We got a bit of confidence. We'd learned how to make it work. And then last year, we were able tentatively to go back live. So we did a combination, we did a hybrid. And that again worked beautifully because there is something about that live in person event that really captures the imagination and really engages the children. But we suddenly had this much wider audience that we'd been reaching for a few years, and we didn't really want to let them down. So it's now a hybrid event. So this year it will be over 5 days, live in a theatre, a 250 capacity theatre. But our wonderful production company, Future Legend Media, are in situ, which they were last year, filming the event from multiple angles, making it a really in-depth, immersive experience, and simultaneously live streaming it out to schools across the country and actually beyond the UK.
And that's amazing, isn't it? Because I think it really sort of hits a chord that what you said in terms of the children that you think need it most and that we know need it most aren't necessarily the ones that are getting that opportunity. And I think that's the great thing about this sort of hybrid way of learning, because it's probably also those children that aren't able to get there in person, or the opportunities or the facilities or the finance isn't there to sort of bring them, and maybe their situation is such that maybe that's not the first thing on people's agenda, particularly when they're trying to help out, which is a shame. And as a musician and the arts being so important, you kind of see it quite a lot in schools. So I think, like I say, being able to bring everything together, it's such a great gift.
That's the thing, and that's what we're trying to do. I'm not. It's not that I'm not interested in literacy. I am absolutely interested in literacy, but that's not my job. I think that if you get a child excited about something, they'll do the literacy they'll do the literacy themselves. It's obviously comprehension and phonics and the bones of how to read are incredibly important. Otherwise, you can't decipher those squiggles on a page. But for me, I'm interested in finding something and creating something that gets the children excited and makes them go, "Oh, I want to try this," especially if they think, as a lot of the children that we work with think, that books and reading are boring. And when we ask them why, it's because it's another opportunity for them to fail. They say, we get tested on it. We have to prove that we understand these words. Whereas we're just going, listen, this is a great story. You're going to love it. We're going to show you all the bits that you think that we think you're going to enjoy, and then we're going to give it to you, and you can go off and experience it for yourself. And being able to do that and reach, we're going out to through Times Tables Rockstars, 16,000 schools this year. That's such a gift. It makes me so happy.
And I think that's it, isn't it? We on the podcast generally we talk a lot about community, and sort of by that we mean sort of everyone who's involved in a child's life. So like you say, they might have a particular way of their environment in school looking, but maybe their home life gives them a bit of support in a different way. It might be vice versa. And I think this fits in really nicely in that different way, that like I say, the perception of what reading is, or the fact that it should be literacy, well actually this is, like I say, just part of learning and imagination and all of that kind of thing. It kind of changes the dynamic because they've got different influences coming sort of directly to them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what we're trying to do. When children and often parents think about reading, they think it's this chore that they need to sit down, open a book, and read. And I think, well, for me, I learned at a very young age that reading can be this magical form of escapism that can actually take you somewhere different and can make you feel safe, or can give you a different life if you don't want to be where you are. And to be able to give that gift to somebody, I'm not interested in lecturing them about the importance of reading. I want to give them this key that lets them open this door and go, "Oh, that's magic." And to be able to show children and parents stories in a way that opens their eyes to that and flips it on its head and says, this isn't a chore I want you to do. This isn't homework. This is a gift I want to give you. This is a joy I want to share with you. And to be the person who gives that to them is just such a privilege. And I love it. And I love everything about what we do.
And that really comes across, which I think is fantastic, because yet again, that's the same thing, that influence and that idea of the enthusiasm of learning, rather than break time's finished now, so we're going to go back in. And we know as adults, sort of post traditional education, as it were, that, the thing I love the most, like the podcast and the chance to chat to people, learn a whole load of things about creating this and the tech and all that. Didn't learn any of that in school, but once you kind of get the bug and you realize you can find these things out, you get yourself involved in a community of people who really love the same sorts of things, and it just becomes an absolute joy, like I say. But it's really hard because you only know what you know from school, and these days very much that starts right at the beginning and carries all the way through.
Absolutely. And one of my most joyful experiences was last summer when I was asked to deliver some workshops for children in a part of the country that is quite badly affected by deprivation. And I went in, and it was over a summer holiday, and it was a holiday club. And these children walked in and were apoplectic with rage when they discovered that they were going to sit with a lady with books. And they were like, but it's our summer holidays. Why are we doing schoolwork? This isn't fair. And they were furious, which delighted me, obviously, because this is my favourite kind of audience. And I was like, right, let's sit down. I want you to tell me, why do you hate books? Why are books boring? Why is this? Why is that? And to learn and to understand why they felt that way was amazing, because it gave me this insight into understanding what the challenge was, really. And a lot of the time, I hear, I've got so many friends, as you can imagine, from what I do, so many teacher friends, so many friends in education, and we hear the same thing of this reluctance and this battle and this challenge. And I kept thinking, well, why is it a battle? Why is it a challenge? Because I know how much joy I get out of it. Why is there this huge gap between my experience and this other experience? It can't be that some people find learning difficult, some people find reading difficult, because there's such a chasm. It has to be about this learned experience, what people have learned. And I think across the generations and through different experiences, and again, 100% teachers are my favourite people in the world. It's through the curriculum, I think, perhaps sometimes, that is forced in terms of targeting and managing tick boxes. Children aren't enabled to discover the joy of reading. They are forced down a route of reading as a way of learning information, or reading as a way of passing a test. And certainly, from the parents I've spoken to, they learned it from their parents. It was an opportunity to fail. It was an opportunity to do a test and not to pass. It was an opportunity to, for example, I happen to think I love the CLPE course, The Power of Pictures, because I think that's so important that we tend to go, right, you've moved on from picture books, now it's time to go on to chapter books, because you can do that, tick, move you on to the harder stuff. Let's move you on to the harder stuff. And pictures are so important in that cognitive connection between ideas and concepts, and we should be allowing children to stick with what they like for longer, so that it's like, I don't know, I think it's like sitting in a jacuzzi. If somebody said, here's a jacuzzi, go and enjoy it, jump in, now get out and go into something else, you wouldn't enjoy it. Whereas if you're allowed to sink into it, find that feeling, find what you enjoy, immerse yourself in it, spend some time relaxing and doing it as an enjoyable thing, you don't want to get out, you don't want to stop, you want to stay there and you want to keep doing it, and then you might move on to something else. And when we try and push reading as a target-driven, let's move them on to the next level, sometimes I just want to pick up a magazine. I don't want to read. I love reading. I love the classics. I love everything. But I don't always want to read them. sometimes I just want to read something fun and relaxing. And we should let kids have that same experience. Don't push them to read something like it's a challenge to be overcome. And let them discover what they love doing and then let them keep doing it until they realize that it's something they want to do all the time.
Yeah, couldn't
Sorry.
agree more. It's absolutely true. And I've sort of had both sides of that coin. You know, I've my children going through school. It's like, well, you can't move up a level until this, or it has to be this way or that way. By which time you kind of lost them. And they have picked up various versions of things since then. But I certainly. In that particular time of their lives, it was something which was sort of quite hard to navigate. And I think from a personal point of view, I had that same sense when I was going through school. But the difference was that once I'd sort of left school, I sort of found this thing called an autobiography, and I suddenly found this idea of that person I was seeing on the telly or a sports person or whatever. It's like, what makes them tick? How did they become brilliant at what they do? And then it wasn't like reading a book. You just, like I say, you just entered into their world, and that's the same whether it's fiction or non-fiction. But like I say, you're suddenly doing it for yourself, and what better thing is there to do than that?
Well, I mean, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there because you were interested in reading somebody else's story, their story. An autobiography is somebody else's story, and that's what makes us human. We have this innate drive to connect with each other, and the way in which we do that is through learning each other's stories. It's by sharing our stories. We make If you share your story with somebody, it makes you vulnerable. It allows you to connect with them. So an autobiography is the most beautiful, pure form of a story. It's somebody's true story. And I used to have wonderful, well-meaning parents come into my children's bookshop years ago and say, "I can only get them to read graphic novels. What else? How can I get them to read proper books?" I'm saying, "What are you talking about? Graphic novels are great." I've got two very different children. What My eldest is actually dyslexic, and broke my heart to hear them say, "I hate books," and I didn't know what to do with that. And then introduced them to graphic novels, which they absolutely fell in love with. My youngest is a voracious reader, has far outstripped their older sibling, even though they're 5 years younger. Um, can read, will read anything, and yet still loves their weekly comic, The Phoenix, which comes through our door every Thursday. And they will put down their computer games, they will focus on the comic because they love reading it. It's those things that they love to read that then lead them to pick up. What was the other thing that I had the other week? I bought them the graphic novel version of His Dark Materials, because that would get them into the story for when they were a bit older. They picked up, what was the book they picked up the other day? I can't remember. It was one that I had on the side. I have various proofs that publishers send to me all the time, and they will just pick anything up, whether it's got pages full of plain text or whether it's got images, because they are not frightened of a book, because they know that something amazing is inside there. So a page of text doesn't worry them, and that's because they've learned that if you open the pages of books, something amazing is inside there. But that didn't come from me sitting there going, "You must read this. Spell that word out. What does that say? Sound it out correctly." I know I'm preaching to the choir.
No, but I think it's great for people watching and listening, because it's that kind of, it gets to the heart of what you're about, and therefore what the event's about, because that way it's a different thing than just like say we're doing this X, Y, and Z. It's why I love the podcast so much. It's that kind of the conversation, the personalities behind a book, if it's an author, behind a website, behind a course, behind an organization, because you can kind of take that as it's sort of professionally produced in inverted commas. But there's nothing like, I know I want to read that book because I love listening to that person talk about why they'd gone about doing it, how they'd written it, why the inspiration was, and all of those kind of things. And for me, that's storytelling in this sort of podcast format. But it kind of, like I say, it's that interaction, it's the person to person connection, and I think that just speaks volumes, really, from my point of view, whether that's a musician in me or the audio side or whatever it happens to be. But like you say, that sort of the actual sort of written word from that point of view does the same thing. And like I say, you can get lost in it. You can create your whole world, which is just a salvation for so many people for all those sort of reasons that we've spoken about as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really where we're trying to get the book festival to. That's the aim. We fund for the physical event. Certainly, we fund 2,250 children from areas around locally that are worst affected by deprivation. So we fund their tickets. We fund a copy of the book to go in the hand of every child, so that when they leave, there's no gap between that incredible experience they've had that has opened up this story to them and them going, oh, that was amazing. I really enjoyed that. That was exciting. That was funny. I was laughing. I was chatting. I was throwing up my ideas to the person on the stage. What? I've got it. This now is mine, and I can take it home and do with it what I want, and I can bury myself in it, or I can put it on a shelf and not look at it. Whereas, we find that when I had the bookshop and I used to do author events in schools, there would be certain children whose parents could afford to buy the book, and they would get this wonderful experience where after the event they would line up and get their book signed, and they would be delighted. And then there would be a group of children who couldn't afford it and would look disappointed, and it would tarnish the experience for them somewhat. So we decided we wanted every child who experienced the festival to get the full festival experience. We wanted them to enjoy seeing the event on the stage, meeting the author, and then get that excitement of, oh my God, I've got the book, and I've met the person who wrote this, and I can take it home. And then, we learned last year, of course, that this wasn't enough, because we would put on free events for schools. We would give free books out, and the schools who were worst affected by deprivation couldn't afford to get a coach to the event, because, as the Times Educational Supplement reported last year, transport costs have gone up in excess of 40-50%, and schools are now being told you can't schedule school trips next academic year because transport costs just make them prohibitive. So we thought, well, we're going to have to fund the transport costs as well. And it grows and grows, but we put it in the budget and we put it in the planning, because at the end of the day, the reason why we do it isn't to put on an event. It's to get children excited about books. How does that happen? And work back from there. And a lot of the time it's the boring stuff. Like, we can put on the best event in the world, but if teachers are, dealing with some children who get pupil premium and free school meals, but a lot of the children's parents are living in working poverty, so they're doing 4 or 5 jobs. They don't qualify for any of the benefits, which means they're actually worse off than the children who are eligible. And you have this just horrible situation in a school where they're having to try and pick and choose which children get to enjoy experiences like this. And it just becomes divisive, and it just, to me, tarnishes the whole experience. I want these children to have an opportunity to see something, see how amazing it is, see how exciting it is, see how wonderful it is, enjoy it with all of their peers, have this collective experience, and then go off and do something else about it back at school. And they can only do that if they all have the same experience, if it's completely democratized, which just means I spend most of my time fundraising.
Well, and thank goodness that you do. I mean, it's such an incredible thing. And you sort of talked about sort of their experience. Take us through what that experience is, because I know you have lots of authors and it's over numerous days. So is it a question of people coming in and out through every day? Is the author there for a certain amount of time and then another author comes in? What's the experience of the people who are watching?
So it starts and ends with the schools, with the teachers, with the pupils. So we essentially, the teachers are our partners. So they're the ones who have the kids day in, day out. And so we're saying to them, what works for you? When I start with my teacher consultations every year in September before the summer event, I basically sit down to them and say, right, tell me how last year BookTastic was a massive pain in your bum. Because teachers are on their knees. Their capacity is maxed as it is. I don't want this to be another job they have to do. I don't want this to be another thing that is a drain on their already completely maxed out resource. So we work out how it will work best. And essentially, I then sit there with, we get submissions from all of the major publishers, and we have to whittle it down to kind of 10 events. one in the morning, one in the afternoon, because they've said that is how it will work best for them. If we start it at 10, it allows them to get the kids to school, get them transported to the venue, have the event, and then if they're going home, they can get home for lunch. And if they're not, they can have lunch there and then do the afternoon event, finish by 2:30, 2:45, get back to school in time for home time. So it's all built around the school day. Then we have, as I say, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. We speak to the publishers and we say we want the events that are going to get kids excited and that are going to get kids. We're not interested in you sending us your big literary titles for the year. Sometimes they will, but the shortlist that we send out to all of the schools has been whittled down from kind of 100-odd titles to say, who do you want to see? Tell us who you want to see. And we get the kids to vote and we get the kids to say, this looks good, that looks good. And I'll say to the teachers, say to the kids who wants to be involved, and the ones who are putting their heads down and don't want to be seen, pick them and ask them if they like the look of any of the books, because they're the ones we're trying to reach. So then we have one in the morning, one in the afternoon. So we put on the coach because otherwise they can't get there. And we've our costs for this year have been horrendous. And to get 10 local schools to the event over 5 days has come to £26,000.
Wow.
But that's a cost that would have to be met by the school, which they don't have. These are the boroughs, these are the areas in the borough that are the most affected by deprivation. So coaches come in and we have a BookTastic volunteer welcome them for each school and be their person for the day, so that nobody feels uncomfortable, nobody's concerned, everybody's relaxed. We take them through to the theatre, which is decorated to make them feel like they're entering some kind of magical wonderland. Get them in their seats. We help the teachers to manage behaviour in the downtime while we're waiting for it to start, because that's a big thing for teachers, is the quiet periods are when you're going to get the trouble. So we have little things to happen while we're waiting for everybody to come in. The author does their event. The authors that have been picked are the kind of authors who are going to deliver something that is dynamic and engaging and whizzy and interactive. You've got Future Legend Media, who are filming it and live streaming it as we go. We have our live stream audiences who can send us questions, who can send us comments and thoughts throughout, and I'll have a camera. I'll have a microphone, and we have various ways of getting those up to the authors on stage. So it's a mix of live stream schools and in-person schools. Then at the end, the live stream finishes. The kids all go onto the stage to have their photo taken with the author, and we give them a copy of the book, which is usually a surprise, which they don't know they're going to get. And then they'll either have lunch with us or they'll head back to school. And we do that all the way through the week. The only one that isn't an in-person event is the Wednesday morning, and that is Jamie Smart, who is an incredible illustrator who works with David Fickling Books and with the Phoenix Presents comic. And he does so much that he just has to do all of his online. So for that one online only event, I have got permission from one of our lovely schools in Bedford to go and sit in their school, in their classroom, and I'll do the online event from their classroom with Jamie, so that he'll be engaging with a classroom of kids who will be doing all of his activities with him. But that will also be live streamed, so which means it just gives it a little bit of extra depth for the people watching at home, for Jamie to get a little bit of to and fro with the children.
And I think the kind of the through thread of all of that, I think, is so really important. Like I say, the great thing of that these days is that because of live streaming, because of social media, people think you can't reach out or you can't be part of their world, but you absolutely can, partly through, like say, putting on an event like this. But to think, oh, I've got that book, oh, it's signed, or I've been able to be on stage and have my photo taken, and that kind of, I've had this wow event, mum, dad, whoever's at home, I've got the book, and look, we can now do this, and you can be part of the world that I've had today. And like I say, and there's no test on Friday about it or anything like that, which just sort of changes the whole thing. And I think it's an incredible thing, because it's so easy to do that was amazing, and now we're back to reality. And I think that kind of making it part of the whole, I think, is probably the greatest gift of it, really.
And that's the thing we do with the teachers and the publishers. So we kind of act like a hub. So we connect, the publishers and the authors and the schools, the teachers, the pupils and funders and literary organisations, to find out what the key issues are at the moment ongoing. And the publishers and the authors will quite often put together, most of them will now put together an activity pack or an activity resource, which we send out to the schools beforehand so they can do it as part of their reading and their literacy lessons to get them excited, to get them to know the book and get a little bit of understanding beforehand. And that way, the kids aren't coming in cold to the event. They've already got that level of excitement. It's about making it an ongoing thing. And that's what we're doing with the live stream audiences as well. So it's really important to us that we keep, as I said at the beginning, keep making sure that we're not being a pain to anybody, that we're actually providing something that is helpful. Because the aim of it is to get kids to be excited about reading. And so we need to partner with schools. So, up until now, it's been making it happen. So with the live stream, we've now got really good, tech behind us. We've got really good channels to get out to the schools. We've got really good partners to make sure we reach everybody. And then I kind of was thinking to myself this year, okay, if you're sat in a classroom with a bunch of kids watching a live stream, 45 minutes is quite a long time in this day and age with kids' attention spans the way it is. So our evaluator this year is going to be working with all of the schools who did the live stream to say to them, is the live stream that important to you? Actually, is the benefit of you being able to interact, because that's out of 16,000 schools, you're only really going to get a couple of people who are going to actually be able to interact. Would it be more beneficial for us to actually do the recording and then edit it down into a really impactful 20 minutes that we then make available as a suite of things for you to watch in the classroom? That is, because obviously 45 minutes, again, you're going to get, kids don't want to sit and watch something for 45 minutes. So we're constantly trying to get this feedback loop to say, is this working? If it isn't, what isn't working? If it is, how could we make it better? Because I don't really care about BookTastic as a thing. I want the kids to enjoy it. The point is for them to walk away from it and go, I love books, reading's great. I can dive into this if I need an escape, if I need comfort, if I need entertainment, if I, haven't got the money for a device that needs charging, that needs Wi-Fi, that needs cost to buy things of it, I can get it free from a library. That is such a gift.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, and like I say, if it's recorded and edited in a suite, I love that idea. Then instead of it being something we're doing in the beginning of July, it's something we're doing throughout September, October, November, however, whenever you want to do it. Because, like you say, you can dip in and out of it as much as you want. And just as a sort of a slight aside, I mean, Apple this week have just sort of been talking about their new glasses and sort of the version of, I don't know, um, virtual reality, but also sort of augmented reality and that kind of thing. And like I say, there's something about a live stream which is great to have the interaction in the way that it is. But by the flip side, thinking, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I guess it could be that all 16,000 of those schools could essentially be in that theatre and taking part and feeling like they're doing it as well. And I think that's really, really exciting from an educational point of view and what is possible. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it gets to be mainstream enough to be able to do that. But I think it's hard not to get slightly kind of downtrodden by the fact, like I say, these schools can't afford to get a coach to the theatre. So are they going to have, enough technology to be able to make it available for everybody? And I think that's where, again, it comes back to this sort of community idea. There's an event, there's an author, there's a festival, there's technology companies that can help, there's businesses, there's we're all part of this. And if we want the world to support children, which is essentially why I exist doing what I do, it's hearing all of those different entities and then coming together, and it has to look differently at that point in order to sort of make the next steps, really.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I've got to get through the next few weeks, deliver the festival at the beginning of July. But actually, my plan after that is to just take some time, because I've been working with a few different organisations. So I have a lovely group of independent booksellers we're a lovely community. We're all very good friends. And I have set up a kind of a group of them around the country to say, I'm going to connect you with all the schools who have registered, so that you can say to them, if they want to buy the books, you could give them a discount. You know, that's a really nice way of making connections between these independent booksellers around the country and their local schools. But actually, what I'm looking to do over the summer and from September onwards is to say, okay, is the greater value in the in-person events? Is that where the maximum impact is had? If so, are we better using BookTastic as this kind of like a hub and spoke, where I sit with the publishers, because I've got all of the connections, I've got all the networks, I know all the authors and publishers and illustrators, I've got all of those relationships. If I build a program and then allow almost as a free franchise for groups around the country to say, right, we're going to do a roadshow and it's going to happen over 2 months. And we will have this suite of authors come to the Northwest, the Northeast, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, Ireland, the Midlands, the Southwest. We have a community in each area where you have local funders, because I work extensively with funders on a national and a local basis. And actually, it's the local funders near to me who are the most responsive and the most generous, because they're really interested in making a difference to local children's lives. And saying to them, you need a collective of a good arts culture, a good local cultural kind of community, where you've got schools who want to get together, you've got funders who will be prepared to, fund to put this on, connections to the local council, connections to venues and places like that, and say, this is what it takes to deliver a Booktastic. We will give you all the bits. We will create the program for you, and then you just need to deliver it locally. We'll do all the annoying bits. You just get the kids and get them in the venue and do it. And that way, we're getting that huge impact, that in-person, these kids are excited, they're going to a venue, they're meeting people, and the impact is being spread massively without me having to run the length and breadth of the country doing it all.
And I guess that's the beautiful thing about it, isn't it? Because essentially, you've done all the hard work creating one, so you just then need however many copies of you there are for each of those venues in whichever part of the country it happens to be, and then obviously have that passion to kind of get that out as well. But I can see that working incredibly well, and it makes so much sense. And I think one of the other things I really love about it is that we started at the beginning talking about sort of the rigidness of education and what people's perception is, and I think because you're so the opposite of that, and it comes across in the way that you're sort of putting everything together, that's a great model. It's not directly within this is how a school's going to run, but it's that kind of, in order to be successful, in order to do what our kind of mission is, we're going to keep evolving and we're going to keep doing things and looking at different ways. And I think as teachers and educators and, like I say, the community at large and the children who are going to be experiencing it, they see all that working. I think people deep down go, of course it's like that. It has to be like that. And it doesn't need a pandemic, and it doesn't need something quite so sort of large scale to kind of make things change. It's just sort of seeing what's working with people and then sort of be guided and inspired and sort of get on the coattails of those things as it happens. So we're going to go in just in a second in terms of people who can still register, but just before we do that, I'm really keen, if there's anyone actually watching who'd like to ask a question, we can do a little bit of sort of interaction here. Do just put it in the comments and I'll bring it up on screen. So don't be shy if you if you are watching and you want to do that. Just before Rachel gives us some of the information about being able to join as well. So yeah, please do that. Just leave a comment and we'll bring some up if there anybody here would like to do that. So tell us then, Rachel, obviously the people that are going to be in the theatres, I guess, are all organised and sorted and they've got their coaches and everything that they need to do. But I guess the people who want to watch it are still able to sign up and get involved from that way.
Absolutely. So we have, as I said, I've been basically running around with a begging bowl saying to people, give us your money, please. So we've managed to strip down the cost as much as possible. So any school in Bedfordshire can get the live stream for free. So there's no charge at all. We've managed to get the costs down to £50 per school to watch the entire week of events. However, because we have some great partners who are amazing at just supporting us, there are various organisations through which you can get a 50% discount for that. So any schools who work with Times Tables Rockstars, which are most schools, get a 50% discount. Any schools who work with School Readers, which is the charity that puts volunteers in schools to read with children, they get a 50% discount. If you work with your local independent bookshop to order books for the festival, they can give you a 50% discount code. And what's the last one? Oh, the last one is our wonderful authors and illustrators who are taking part in the festival. So that is, in order, let's see how good my memory is. Shana Jackson with The Good Turn. Patrice Lawrence with The Elemental Detectives. Maz Evans with Who Let the Gods Out. Jasmine Richards as part of the Future Hero collective. Jamie Smart with Bunny vs. Monkey and Lushkin and all of his incredible, amazing comics. Kevin and Katie Tsang with Space Blasters. Lee Newbury with the first Shadow Dragon. Vashti Hardy with the latest Harley Hitch book. Sarah McIntyre and Philip Reeve with Adventure Mice. And A.F. Harold and Minnie Gray with the Book of Mostly Useful Advice.
Fantastic. Well, we said testing isn't important, but I think if there was a gold star available, then I think you definitely deserve one, even though you don't want one, and it doesn't matter.
So yeah, all of those authors and illustrators, you can get a 50% discount if you are referred through them.
Fantastic. Amazing. I think it's such an incredible thing to do. And tell us about the live event later on in the year as well, because we can maybe try and repurpose this in some way to help that as well.
Wonderful, yeah. So what we try to do is have a family weekend in winter, and that is essentially to widen the impact of the festival beyond 3:30. So we know teachers do an incredible job. We also know from talking to a lot of them that for parents who are just working so hard, just don't have the capacity once they get home, reading is it's a luxury they can't afford. So we work with schools to offer something similar to the schools program. We will get collectives of families together to meet at the school on the Saturday morning. We'll put transport on to take all of the families to the venue. We pay for all of their tickets for the whole day of events. We also have an open bar with refreshments for them so that they don't have to worry about getting lunches for the kids. And then they get a copy of the book at the end where they can queue up and get it signed. And that is again happening in Bedfordshire this year, with the plan to be, again, it'll be rolled out across the country if we manage to find enough crazy people who want to do what I do.
Yeah, all those sort of twins and siblings you never knew you had. That's just a carbon copy of that enthusiasm and everything that comes across. Fantastic. Well, I think we've managed to explain it so well. We've got no comments or questions coming in. I think we've sort of covered everything. So just remember that it's the 3rd to the 7th of July, and just give people the website or the place that they can go and sort of where they can sign up and when they can get involved.
If you just go to www.booktastic.org.uk, and on the home screen there will be a button that you can press to register.
Fantastic. Well, Rachel, thank you so much. Keep up the amazing work. If I could give you something to help over these next few weeks, whether it's just a 2-minute breath or some kind of energy, I think you'll need every part of it. But I think you're making such a difference to so many people. It's just an incredible thing. So yeah, thanks so much, and keep it going.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So thank you for everybody that's watched. Thank you if you've been listening. It's really an incredible privilege for me to be able to share these stories, to share the events and the passions of people that are doing such great things for children. That's essentially what Education on Fire is all about. It's that ability to understand the child at the center of everything that's going on in the community and all the people that are taking stakeholders, if you like, of their lives, and how, no matter who we are, what we can do to make a difference. So thank you to Rachel, but thank you also to all those people that are supporting her and making this possible. And I really, really appreciate that, and every person that's kind of done it. So yes, a big round of applause for absolutely everybody involved. And thank you so much for watching, and we will be back again very soon.